Hey guys, this is Logan here with Hydra572. The title of this video is Buy the Boring Shit. I want to make a couple of points about how we make our purchasing decisions when it comes to our EDC gear. But first I want to talk about airsoft so that I can illustrate the concept with something that we take a little bit less personally before I bring it around to our knives and our gear. Without further ado, this is my airsoft gun. This is an Echo 1 CPW. Obviously it's an AK pattern rifle that's made to have a buffer tube and an adjustable stock, just like an AR-15. It's a really cool gun, and I had a lot of fun building it and modifying it. For those of you that don't know, modifying your gun is a big part of what airsoft is all about. It's a lot of fun, especially for younger kids, to take the gun, modify it, really make it your own. You can do aesthetic and internal modifications to make the gun perform better and look better, and it's just like how in a lot of video games the most fun part is creating your character. One of the most fun parts for me about airsoft was modifying my airsoft guns, really making them into what I wanted to make them. Now, the first reason that I modified my airsoft gun is because it was cool and it was a lot of fun. That means that the secondary reason was actually because I wanted to do better at airsoft. Performance was actually a secondary modifier for me. I wouldn't have been doing it if it wasn't so cool, if the gadgetry and the tech work, all that stuff wasn't fun. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. The same's true for my interests in knives, gear, guns, all that sort of stuff. It's interest-based first, and then performance-based, then utility-based. Now, I remember back when I was playing more often, I would have conversations about guns with people on the field and between games all the time. It's part of what you do, it's really sociable. You can go up to somebody else with a modified gun and talk about modifications for hours. You know, it's one of your interests, it's just a lot of fun. But what struck me odd was how many people I would go up and talk to and see that they had a heavily modified gun, and we'd start talking about whether we decided for Magpul or another company, start talking about optics, all that sort of thing, but then I started talking about internal modifications, and they said that they hadn't done any. They'd spent upwards of $100 putting all this extra stuff on their rifle. An expensive PMAG analog, you got your pistol grip, you have an expensive stock, your foregrip, and none of this stuff is really cheaper than it is for real steel. You still pay a premium for your aesthetic stuff that goes on the outside. And these people hadn't even done the common sense modifications that would help your gun run better. I know not everyone here is an airsoft tech, but hopefully we can understand there are simple modifications that you can do to make your airsoft gun more reliable and to increase your rate of fire. When you're on full auto and you hold down the trigger, it'll spit out more BBs. Those are things like checking the engagement on your piston that drives the gun, making sure that your gears are shimmed really well. These things cost almost nothing. A couple of them are more complex, like making sure your piston has a good seal. That's some pretty, not really master level work, but it takes a good technician to do it. But still, it doesn't really cost much. We're talking about stuff that costs under $10, and it makes the gun more reliable and it makes it perform a little bit better. Upwards from there, for around $30, you have getting into the range of a tight bore barrel. That's just a better machined barrel that will help your BBs fly further and more accurately. These are really common sense modifications that every amateur techie knows to do on an airsoft gun to make the thing perform better. It makes your experience better. You're hitting more of the stuff that you point at. That's the point. Those are performance modifications. But a lot of these kids that I was talking to hadn't done those modifications simply because they didn't think they were as cool. They weren't getting that motivator of making the gun aesthetically into something that they wanted to make it. So they had a gun like this that's undergone some pretty significant aesthetic modification, but internally it was just a plain Jane gun, just right from the factory, without even the basic modifications to make sure that it was reliable. And that struck me really odd. Because obviously I love my external modifications. I put $30 into a fore-end, $25 into a pistol grip, $30 into a stock. And I have like 10 of these magazines that I paid like $15 or $20 for a piece. And I have my optics, so obviously I love putting money into the cool stuff. Like I said, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think this stuff was really cool. I love the way that my gun looks. I love that it's unique from everybody else's on the field. But the performance is still a big thing to me. I'm not going to pump $200 into modifying my gun if it shoots just the same at the end as it did at the beginning. But there are a bunch of people out there who would do the aesthetic modifications, they would make the gun look the way that they wanted it to, and it was still shooting just the way that it came from the factory, and when they finished their aesthetic modifications, it finally looked as good as they wanted it to look, they were really proud of their gun, they went out and bought another gun that still just shot like a factory gun, and they got working on that gun, and they put another stock on it, put an optic on it, made sure it was looking the way they wanted it to look, and then it went in the closet too, and they bought another gun and another pistol and, you know, maybe some more expensive external modifications, but they never really got around to picking one gun, sticking to it, and making sure that it had the internal modifications that it needed to perform reliably and perform well. And that was really weird to me. Now, similarly, when we talk about our knives and our gear, the reason that I'm in this hobby is because I think this stuff is really cool. As a little kid, my dad bought me a pocket knife, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. All of a sudden, I could whittle, I could make little spears to throw around. It was a lot of fun. I wouldn't have stuck with it if it hadn't been fun. But utility is also a big motivator for me. It's important that if I'm going to be spending lots of money on gear, lots of my time at work going into funding these purchases, that I get some utility out of it. I like being the guy who saves the day when somebody's crying out for a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, or tweezers. I like being able to go, hey, don't worry, I got you. That utility is really important to me. So it always struck me odd when I'm on Instagram and I see lots of people, one day they're EDCing, say, an 0560 and their phone and their keys in their wallet. And that's it. You go, huh, that's weird. Maybe they're new here. And the next day, they're carrying their Hogue EX01 and their phone and their keys in their wallet and nothing else. Well, that's still not weird. You know, maybe they bought just a couple of blades and they're still getting into the hobby. And then the next day, it's a Microtech DOC. And the next day, it's an Emerson. And they have this really cool collection of expensive folders that were all basically designed to do the same thing. They all do it really well, but they all do the same job. That strikes me really odd, because, yeah, I think that knives are part of the coolest part of this hobby. They're one of the most visceral things that you can look at a knife and go, yeah, I know what that would do if I had to get down to business. But they're neglecting that whole other sphere of things. If they need a flashlight, they're boned. If they need a little multi-tool with a nail file or a screwdriver, they're boned. Even though they've put lots of money into the hobby, the little things they've neglected. Same thing with airsoft. You wouldn't believe how many people, instead of buying the batteries that they needed to compete or the BBs that they needed to compete, they'd scrimp on that stuff so that they could buy another pistol that they weren't going to carry into a competition. It just blows my mind a little bit. I realize that the primary motivator is that this stuff is cool. I'm just like you guys. If I thought guns were lame, if I didn't get any fun out of shooting a gun, I wouldn't own one, despite how important I think self-defense is. It just wouldn't motivate me the same way that it does. So I get that the primary motivator is cool stuff, but utility should be in there too. So if you're going to be spending $200 on a folder here, $200 on a folder there, put in a little bit of money for a multi-tool, put in a little bit of money for a flashlight, so you can get that utility. That's all I'm saying in this video, is buy the boring shit. I'm not saying that I'm really jonesing after my next flashlight purchase, but it's utility. It matters to me to be able to put money into this hobby and get something real out of it, get something that's not just cool factor on my blades. I love this stuff as much as you guys do, but there's got to be some utility to go with it. So I would urge you guys, every once in a while, I'm not saying that if you have one blade you should stop, don't collect blades anymore, go out and find the best multi-tools in the world, make sure you've perfected that, but get an EDC system in order. And I'm not saying that it all has to be flashlights, multi-tools, all that sort of fun stuff. This is the stuff that I work with. I work as a lifeguard, I spend some time repairing stuff, I work outside with my friends a lot, and so I've built a system that works for me. If the thing that you actually need is a battery to charge your phone, a tablet so that you can surf Wi-Fi and not deplete your phone battery, anything like that, if you guys need the gear, the culture is evolving. You can buy that sort of stuff. Those consumer products are getting better for anything that you might need. Maybe what you need to do is start carrying around a sketch pad. I don't know your system, I don't know your life. What I'm saying is, if you're going to put lots of money into a hobby that's at least partially centered around being prepared and getting utility out of your items, think about how you can be prepared and get utility out of your items. And I don't think the best way for everyone is 15 copies of a blade that do the same thing. They look really cool, they look different, and if you put a Microtech DOC in front of me right now, or equal value in other utility items, I'm going to be really tempted to pick that Microtech DOC. Unfortunately, I probably have to pick the fucking utility items now that I made the fucking video. I can't be a hypocrite, but you know, I want to pick the knife, I get it. But get some utility out of your stuff, get a little bit. So maybe 1 out of every 5 times that you'd save up $200 to spend on that blade or this blade, just go ahead and look at, what can I do? Tablet, multi-tool, extra set of car keys. What do I need to get more utility out of my money as well? That stuff's important. That's all I wanted to talk about. It's a little bit of a guiding philosophy around here. You guys have seen the EDC gear reviews from the start. You will continue to see them. And I've bought some stuff that's a little bit outside my normal sphere here in the recent future and past. And I don't know how I bought something in the future, but fuck it. So you guys are going to start seeing some first impressions and some reviews of stuff that's a little bit off-center from the knives, but I feel like it's still centered in the hobby because of what it offers in terms of preparedness and utility. I think you guys will enjoy it. I think you're excited. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more of the same.